Hey, what's up, guys? It looks like the Last of Us HBO show reviews are finally here. I just woke up, took a shower, and I'm ready to read the reviews for the Last of Us HBO show. And I want to share with you guys because I'm basically going to be reacting to it right now with you guys. So let's just get into the reviews. I'm excited and I cannot wait to see what they have to say. And first of all, before we get into the reviews, I want you guys to go and follow Naughty Dog Central because they are the ones who have been putting, together reviews of the Last of Us HBO show, collecting all the reviews that we have been seeing from critics and from different types of people and from fans that have watched the first episode and also the whole entire season of the Last of Us HBO show. Give them a follow on Twitter right here. And also they have their own website, Naughty Dog Central. Go and check them out. It's absolutely fantastic what they're doing lately. First, we have, these reviews from Empire. They're giving it 100 out of 100. We have Daily Beast who give it 100. We have Radio Times who give it 100. We have Collider who give it 100. We have IGN who give it a 9 out of 10. We have Paste who give it a 95. Rolling Stone who give it an 80. Telegraph who give it an 80. Independent who give it an 80. Washington Post who does not give a score, but I heard that they actually give it a good review. We have two negative reviews. Well, one that's kind of in the middle and one that is negative. Entertainment Weekly who give it a 67 and Slant who gives it a 50. And we're going to read all the reviews of this right now and see what critics have to say for the Last of Us HBO show. And let's start right away with Empire who gives it 100. Empire's John Nugent, I think that's how you say it. I'm sorry with names. I'm bad with names. Okay. Gave the show a 10 out of 10, stating comfortably the best adaptation of a video game ever made, one that deepens the game's dystopian lore while staying true to its emotional core. Like the game, it's a masterpiece too. That right there alone is getting me excited that somebody is calling it a masterpiece, that it's calling it, a fantastic, game to the, not game, TV show to the point where it's the best adaptation of a video game ever made. That right there is just making me super, super excited. Let's go and see what Daily Beast, who gave it 100, has to say. As heartbreakingly faithful as it is riveting and suspenseful, The Last of Us is a triumph that ends any further debate about the all-time best video game adaptation. At once familiar and original, action-packed and mournful, bearing some Armageddon grade calamity, it seems destined to be HBO's next blockbuster. That right there is fantastic to hear. Let's go for Radio Times, who also gives it 100. The Last of Us is the best video game adaptation of all time. It is also a fantastic TV drama in its own right. If you're on the fence about watching it, do yourself a favor and get involved as soon as possible. That is fantastic to hear. And what... Oh my God. I'm getting excited because look, I love The Last of Us. I want it to do good. And it looks like a lot of people are saying that it's absolutely fantastic. That is one of the best video game adaptations of all time. That is a masterpiece. That is all these other things. That is fantastic to hear. Collider, who gives it a 10 out of 10, says, Collider's Roz Bonami, or whatever, the last name, how you pronounce it, has also rated the show a comfortable 10 out of 10. Druckmann and Mason have taken this unforgettable story and made it richer and more impactful, letting us live with these characters and this world in a way that we couldn't in the game. The Last of Us is a monumental success. That right there is making me excited to watch the show, because the fact that they're saying that the story is not just fantastic and is very impactful, and it's not just letting us live with the characters in this world, but it's doing it in a way that we couldn't do it in the game. And that was one of my biggest concerns, because when you play video games, especially The Last of Us on the PlayStation, you have this connection, this weird connection with Ellie and Joel, because you're playing as them. So when you take that element away, it really does take half of what makes that game special, in my opinion. When you play video games, you play as the characters, you die as the characters, you feel what they feel because you're playing as them. And when you don't have that in the TV show, it just feels weird. When you have that in a movie, it feels weird when you don't have that control. And I feel like that's why video game adaptations don't work. So I'm really happy to hear that it looks like in this case, it does work. So let's hope that is the case when I watch it tomorrow on a VIP screening I was invited in New York. So yeah, well, I'll talk more about that at the end of the video actually. IGN gives it a 9 out of 10. And this is what they have to say about The Last of Us HBO show. HBO's The Last of Us is a breathtaking adaptation of one of the most impactful stories told in video games and brilliantly brings Joel and Ellie's journey to a whole new audience, taking the essence of what made the original tale so enduring and builds out the world of the game while also switching up some aspects to almost entirely stunning effect. Plant also proceeds to praise the performances of Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey as Joel and Ellie. Anchored by two outstanding lead performances from Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal, it delivers an enriching show for fans of the PlayStation hit while also managing to stay welcomely thrilling to newcomers. That is fantastic to hear, that it looks like even though they're taking stuff from the original game that made it special, which is exactly what us fans really wanted, I cannot, be more grateful that they're just adding up to what made it special instead of, making it something entirely different to the point where fans are like, oh, no way, they took this that made it special and they just completely changed it, That is very, very good to hear. It looks like it's staying true to what made it special, but adding upon it. That is exactly what us fans of The Last of Us wanted, and it looks like that is the case. Now let's go for Paste, who gives it a 95 out of 100. Complex characters combined with stellar acting, a wonderfully paced story, and an emotionally engaging plot that make The Last of Us a brilliant series that is now the template all other video game TV adaptations should follow. Fantastic to hear that The Last of Us should be the example of what TV adaptations for video games should be, and for movies and for other things. That is fantastic to hear. Now let's go for the more decent, 80, out of 100 reviews. For, in this case, let's start with the Rolling Stone. This is what they have to say. They gave it an 80 out of 100. It is essentially a smarter and much better executed The Walking Dead with higher production values and a smaller and stronger cast. But the character work soon becomes so potent that there are long stretches without any infected, and it doesn't feel like the series is lacking in dramatic tension and memorable incidents. Druckmann and Mazin have turned it into something that works incredibly well as a TV show. Now that right there actually is making me excited, even though they might say it as a negative. And for me, not having a lot of infected and focusing on the actual characters is exactly what made the first game special. The Last of Us was never about the infected, never about the world going crazy like that. It was always about the characters living in a world like that, but also finding ways to actually love and trust again. That for me is what made The Last of Us special, and that right there is what's making me excited that that's kind of the case of the show, and they're keeping that essence of what made the original game special. Now let's go to Telegraph, who also gives it an 80 out of 10. This is what they have to say about the whole season of The Last of Us HBO show. At 9 episodes, it feels a little long, even if it's truncated compared to its source material, but in its scale, depiction of dread, and its believable vision of friendship in disaster, The Last of Us is a rare piece of television, an adaptation that makes you want to rush out and play the game. Fantastic to hear. The Independent has this to say, and they gave it an 80 out of 100. The Last of Us is undoubtedly a new landmark in the seemingly impossible task of adapting video games. It is too early to say whether it will satisfy the leanings of fans who believe that Druckmann's survivalist game is high art in itself, but Neil Druckmann, working with Mazin, has his fingerprints all over this tender, well-crafted, and blackly comic piece. That is fantastic to hear, that it's basically a Neil Druckmann, game becoming a very good TV show. That is very good to hear, that the people involved that also created the first game have done good work into making a very decent show. That right there is fantastic to hear. Now we have Washington Post, who has no score, but I heard that they actually are very positive over The Last of Us HBO show, and this is what they have to say on their little snippet review of The Last of Us HBO show. As someone who admires the original game and what it achieved, HBO's The Last of Us is still a fascinating and enjoyable ride through an old familiar adventure tale powered by actors who honor the original vision. When I compare the two stories and the artistic choices made to differentiate the show from the game, I have to admit The Last of Us HBO show version sometimes steals the show. That is fantastic to hear, because this is the thing. Even though the original game is absolutely fantastic, it's my favorite video game of all time, my favorite story in a video game of all time, and probably top 3 medias of all time. I do want that if something is going to adapt it, I really do want it to enhance it, to probably even make it better. Why do you want it to be worse? You want it to be better. And it looks like in certain moments, it could steal the show. And that is making me super excited for when I watch this show. Now, we're going into the more mixed and negative reviews. And as we have right now, we only have one mixed and one bad review. The Entertainment Weekly gives it a 67, and this is what they have to say for The Last of Us HBO show. Entertainment Weekly was a bit more critical of the show, giving it a 6.7 out of 10. The scope is vast for better, soaring vistas, extensive cityscapes, and for worse, one of the premiere's 2 prologues is pointless. There are big deal guest leads, the action is fine, functional. One episode completely shifts the game's canon. The outlet also states that the show may not be refreshing enough for people who have already played the game. Some scenes get recreated shot for shot that may work best for newbies or fans who prefer adaptations barely adapted. It contributes to the feeling of watching someone else replay the game, basically. Now, this right here is a little bit, now that I'm reading it and everything, this feels more like they're lowering the score because the show did not take that extra risk of completely just changing the original source material. And as we all know, a lot of fans do not like if you're going to adapt something that was already special and amazing, you fans don't like it changing way too much. You want to take the essence of what made it special and actually make a show or a movie or whatever that encapsulates what made the original so special. And that is sometimes by taking shot for shot, recreating certain moments that were iconic. And you have to do that. In my opinion, that's what makes it special. If you take the original thing that made it special and add to it, not change it. Because then we have Resident Evil Netflix show, and then we have the Halo show that completely changed the essence of what made the original games special, and people hated it. So if you do that, you're just going to piss off the majority of the fan base, and you don't really want that. So I'm really happy that Neil Druckmann and Craig Mason completely said, you know what? We're going to take what made the original game special and add upon it instead of changing it completely. And that's why, honestly, I cannot agree with lowering the score to 67 and with this review, because it doesn't make sense of what, fans really want. Now, we have a 50 out of 100. And this is the more negative one. And this is what they have to say for The Last of Us HBO show. In the end, by stripping out the gameplay from a vivid genre game that's fleshed out by cinematic and televisual tropes, the series ends up as mostly just the latter, all flesh, no bones. Now, I want to read the full review, but I'm not going to read it here because this video is already way too long. I'm sorry about that, guys, but it is what it is. I'm going to read it and I'll just share my opinions, I guess, on a stream or on Twitter and see what's up. But it looks like The Last of Us HBO show is actually going to be a fantastic show. A lot of people are giving it 100, a lot of people are giving it 90s, a lot of people are giving it 80s. It's basically like 90% positive, 5% negative, 5% mixed. So right there, that is a very good indication that it's going to be probably one of those adaptations that is going to make us extremely happy. In Metacritic, it's already an 84, which, to give context, Breaking Bad, is on an 87, which is just fantastic for me. That's the best American TV show of all time. So The Last of Us being on an 84, that right there is absolutely fantastic. And it looks like this is going to be one of those video game adaptations that is going to steal our hearts, and that I can actually faithfully say that it could be a masterpiece and the best video game adaptation of all time. Now, I want to announce that I'm actually going to watch The Last of Us HBO show live on a theater in New York City tomorrow on January 11th. I've been invited to a VIP screening, and I am going to, watch the first episode. I wanted to do it in LA and watch it in the red carpet with other, with the creators and all these people, but I honestly did not send any emails to request going, or I wasn't really invited to that, but I was invited to the one in New York City, and I cannot wait to actually watch the first episode. I'm going to give you guys my first impressions of the first episode. I'm going to give you guys my non-spoiler review of the first episode, and I'm also going to possibly do a vlog of my trip to New York to watch The Last of Us HBO show. So if you guys are going to be in New York to watch the VIP screening of The Last of Us HBO show, let me know, and let's see if we can actually, get together, meet in person, and just, share the love of this amazing franchise. I'm also going to stream The Last of Us Part 1, the video game, before The Last of Us HBO show comes out. I'm going to stream it on my YouTube channel, and it's going to be this upcoming weekend. So all of this content is going to release this week, and I cannot wait to show it all to you guys. Stay tuned for my reviews, for my first impressions, for all the content that is going to come out very soon. Make sure to like the video if you guys are excited for The Last of Us HBO show. If these reviews are making you excited, if they're making you, a little bit scared or whatever, let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys think, and what are you feeling for The Last of Us HBO show? I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Stay positive, stay safe, endure and survive, my friends, and I'll see you guys next time.